morning.
Okay guys, good morning. Welcome to the second day of our seminar, and it's an honor to present our speaker today, teacher Teresita Garcia Bernal. This is the workshop Getting 100 or Communicative Competence Assessment. And well, I have some information about Teresita, BA and MA in ELT teacher at LELI program at Instituto Mexicano Norteamericano de Relaciones Culturales Monterrey, has worked as academic coordinator of Centro de Idiomas and teacher at the BET and ELT programs at Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, teacher trainer at ELT Coaching and Solutions, ICELT TKT tutor, IELTS Cambridge Oral Examiner, TKT Practical Assessor, and I will ask you to give her a warm applause, please.
Okay, well, finally we have a presentation. Teachers, before we get started, just take a look at the title again. Maybe there was something there that made you select this workshop. What about the first part? Getting 100 or communicating? With your, thinking about your students. Do you have those students with impeccable grades? But never say a word. And we don't know if they are shy, or they don't know, or what happens. And we have the other kind of students, 70, 75, 80, but they always participate, they talk, and even with mistakes. So what are we looking for? No? And we will discuss particularly the characteristics of communicative competence assessment. So what is what we are not only teaching, but in this case, evaluating or assessing. That is the purpose of this task, to focus on this. You have a handout. Does anybody have a handout?
No.
We need more handouts? Okay. One here. Who needs a handout? Please indicate that to each of them. All right. Our first question is, list 3 activities commonly used in an English test. Or in other words, what do you do to evaluate your students? Can you think of an activity or an exercise?
Fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blanks.
Underline the
Underline.
questions. Create sentences using grammar.
Good. Now, what do we mean by traditional testing compared to authentic or alternative assessment? Can we name a difference? This would be traditional. Let's see what happens in a class. Well, this is something you are very familiar with, so I won't go in much detail into this. In a traditional test, because it's basically a test, we don't have other forms regularly of assessment, you are likely to find one or many of these, right? Yes? Or other forms like the ones you mentioned. Okay, but let's have another contrast here. On the other hand, authentic assessment includes what? Includes an authentic task, that is one in which students identify with a role or a task that they will perform outside the classroom in the real world. That's a very big difference, or solve problems. Like this. Do you think your students would do this? in real life?
Yes.
Yes. How many times do we write emails?
Yeah.
To colleagues, to our friends, family, many people. And this goes together with a rubric, because how would you assess this student piece of writing? What elements would you consider? If your students write an email as an assessment task, what would you consider?
Spelling,
Spelling, grammar,
Vocabulary.
vocabulary,
The organization.
the organization, coherence. But what if a student really completed the email, is communicating some idea but with terrible grammar? What would you do? 0.
No, because he's communicating, I mean,
He's attempting not to communicate. Or what if he writes a beautiful piece of writing, email, with good grammar, but maybe not about his friend, but to his boss? Maybe there is a problem with. So there are many things we need to consider. Grammar is not the only thing, also task completion and other things. As this is a piece of subjective students' work, we need to have our points, our criteria very clear. I won't go too much detail into this. I'd like to present you with something else. But the traditional assessment is only usually a one-time event, the final test, or maybe 2 exams in the class. Conducted usually by the teacher, eventually other teachers. There are other persons who design the test. But let me pose a common problem. In our classes, we are always going through an ongoing assessment. We are all the time we're assessing, right? Even if you say, did you understand? That's assessment. So the teacher is always gathering information on students' progress. You can do that with a rubric or speech format for evaluating projects. But here, in classroom-based evaluation, teachers and students are active participants. This is a sample of self-evaluation. There is also peer evaluation. So we are connecting what we do with what in the classroom with the assessment. See? Who has been in a situation like this, and I mean you as a student, not as a teacher. Sometimes students, feel really bad when we take an exam and we discover that it's very different or completely different from what you saw in class. As a student and not as a teacher, how would you feel? Frustrated, angry, betrayed, cheated, disappointed.
Cheated.
Yes, no problem. So look at this. The thing is that we have beautiful classes, communicative, with very modern strategies and technology and everything, but we end assessing with an objective test, multiple choice, within the last class, which is not that bad. I'm not saying that. But imagine I want to take a picture of you as a class, and I only focus my camera on this part of the group. If I need evidence of everybody working, my evidence is not complete. Same thing happens with traditional testing. It doesn't give you the whole picture of what your students are doing, and it's not usually reflecting what happens in the class. So we need to assess students with similar experiences from the ones they did in class and the ones they're going to find outside. Because in the end, what we want is to assess what students want to do. Can you name 4 methods for language teaching? Yes?
DPR,
DPR, sort of physical response,
grammar translation,
grammar translation,
Direct Wikipedia.
Directly, Wikipedia, etc. Well, language teaching, you know, there is some history, there is some evolution. But is there a similar evolution in testing? What do you think?
It's mostly the same.
Let's see. So language testing, yes, it has evolved, and we can also recognize several stages. The problem is that sometimes it's not parallel. Spolsky recognizes or identifies 3 stages. Let's very briefly go through them. The first one, you know, what were the first methods? Grammar translation, direct, etc. No, this is not very documented. The teaching and the testing, but we could think of students doing the same kind of exercises in the exam, translating, completing, filling in the blanks, etc. Memorizing even rules. As ELT is evolving, no, we have the psychometric or structuralist, and we will see audiolingual and other methods. At this stage, that is known as the scientific period. There is a lot of influence and contributions from psychology and structural linguistics. There we see methods like the audiolingual, situational language teaching, the oral approach, etc. But the testing techniques, yes, they change, but this is also pretty much about the same, because we still have objective tasks for grammar. Now we are interested in phonetics and phonology, but we are isolating in a way that we call discrete item, no? One thing at a time. Is this the way we talk?
No.
No, I'm not. I am not coming here just to talk and never listen to you. We are having an exchange. We read, we write all together in life. So why should we do the other thing in the class and in the exam? The third one, 60s, now we are going ahead in time. There was obviously a dissatisfaction with this kind of techniques for teaching and for testing. So the authors are more concerned about other fields. Dale Himes, which is the one who coined communicative competence, and this is about the 60s, I guess it's 65. He coined that term, and they were interested in language contexts. So by that time, we start seeing techniques that consist of tasks that measure the communicative uses of language and not only what students know. Can you think of a communicative activity right now?
Role play.
A role play. Here in a role play, I see what you're able to do. Not only in the fill in the blanks where you demonstrate or reproduce your grammar, no? See the comparison, very briefly, between the first and the second generation tests and the third generation tests that intend to be communicative. Here we're evaluating one thing at a time. Here we evaluate in an integral way. We were interested in the past in what they know, now in what they do with the language. And more in receptive skills, but not much attention was paid on productive skills. Also, those were objective. There was only one single answer. Now we have more than one possible answer. And those tests, of course, they are very reliable. You can trust them because you can give them to the learners, and it's going to be the same result of scores, well, the same result, even if the student passes or not, but the exam reflects the same. Yes? Now, but they are not valid. Validity refers to whether a test measures what it is supposed to be measured. If I want to measure my students' ability to communicate, a simple objective fill in the blanks or true or false test is not going to tell me that. Okay? Very briefly, Himes distinguishes between what we know and what we can do. Linguistic versus communicative competence. So communicative competence is a more complex concept because it involves not only the knowledge of the grammar, syntax, vocabulary, morphology, etc., but also the social knowledge about how and when to use utterances appropriately. It's not the same asking for a favor to your best friend. You need 20 pesos because you left your wallet at home. And you go and ask that to your best friend. What would you say?
Do you have 20 pesos to lend me?
Yes? Let's do this question in Spanish. ¿Qué le dicen al amigo?
Préstame 20 pesos.
Bastante pesos. Eso es malo. ¿Qué más? ¿Ah? ¿Cómo? ¿Ah?
You just gotta be polite.
Okay, we're polite but in a very informal way. What if the only person you have is your boss? But you need the 20 pesos because you don't have your car and you need to get back home by bus. So what would you say?
Would you please?
Would you please? Would you mind? So all these aspects are also included in communicative competence. So reflection. I need you to think about the last exam you gave to your students. Was it the final test? Was it the midterm exam? Think about the exam. Picture the exam. One section or a few questions. Would you say your exam is a communicative one? No? What's missing? Communication. Only? So what do we mean by a communicative test? Interaction. What are the characteristics? Good point, because it's the first one I'm going to mention. What are the characteristics that we can find in a communicative test? Well, this author, Kid Morrow, no, look, back in the 79 year, which is not, no, which is far away, but this is still valid. Let's see. He identifies as a third generation test, or a communicative test, one that has these 7 characteristics. Those are words you know already, but let's go one by one very quickly. But the problem is that they are not usually measured in traditional tests. Occasionally, or maybe we add another task, no, to complement our assessment. So, interaction-based. When we use a language with people, we interact, right? And we are saying something that according to what is being said to us, okay? Even if it's not a face-to-face interaction, even if it's an email or a simple WhatsApp, there is interaction, right? Bueno, si no te dejan visto.